Greetings, everyone. Welcome into the Wolverine.com's postgame show. About 15 minutes or so after the game goes final in Bloomington, Indiana wins 20-15 over the Michigan Wolverines. Another one of those close but no cigar types of games on the road. We'll talk about it, of course. Offensive takeaways, defensive takeaways. We'll give out some game balls. We'll take your questions as we do every week here on the show. Anthony Broome here with former Michigan defensive lineman Ryan Van Bergen. And Ryan, I'll just start with this. I sort of joked about it like when we just hopped on here, but this is more of the same. You and I have done the show that we're about to do tonight. I mean, if you 5 times this season, a few more times than that, if you count some of the things we've talked about in wins, it's, the energy was better early, but the first half, not great. You go in down 17-3 and, here comes one of those rah, like got to play for Michigan type of speeches. And you come out, you play hard in the second half, and it's just not enough. And I'll just start again with this. I mean, this feels like just completely mismanaged, completely from a coaching staff perspective. It just seems like don't have a feel for managing games. You're running on third down to set up, trying to draw your opponent offsides on fourth down. You're running the ball 4 straight times in the red zone. You're not calling timeouts and wasting 28 seconds down 1 score in the fourth quarter of a game. There's talent on this team. There's talent on the defense. You saw it in the second half. I mean, credit to Wink Martindale for making the big adjustment, maybe some of the best adjustments they've made all year. But at the end of the day, like, especially offensively, these self-inflicted wounds that come from the sideline, not from the field, are what does this team in my opinion, in a game like this.
It's tough to have the game unfold the way that it did, and to me, see these guys playing their hearts out. I thought a lot of the team effort was good consistently throughout the game, but you see us in positions and situations that there's no justification outside of the coaches put us in those types of situations. And in particular in this game, bringing Alex Orji in and the Orji package, which I think found some moderate success throughout the last 2 weeks, but it found nothing this week. And we still are beating our head against that door. Khalil Mullings, not sure if he has a health issue or what's going on, but it kind of seemed like they took him out at least early on in this game and tried to kind of go pocket passer with Davis Warren and change it up a little bit. And I think we've all looked for some change up offensively, but non-complimentary play calls to the players that we have, non-complimentary platoon offense to defense. Saw a little bit of synergy in the second half, which was nice, but it's just such a small flame and such a small spark. And just like you said, we have the same record on repeat, but I feel like coaching let us down in some big ways, both offensively, defensively, special teams, time management, penalties, not lined up. Were there some good glimpses? Yeah, but overall, I feel like we got out-coached, and that's why we came away, 5 points short of being able, or 6 points short of being able to beat this good Indiana team.
And we do the show last week where, you lose by 3 scores to Oregon. That was, the most likely or within the most likely range of outcomes. And, we said some of the same things about, coaching kind of costing them, and people would push back and say, oh, what do you expect? They don't have this, and their corners are out and lost a lot of talent from last year. And it's the number 1 team in the country. Well, a lot of those same issues pop back up in a game like this, where again, you give Indiana credit. Like, this is the first time they've been in a fist fight all year. And I thought that showed at times. I mean, they played a little tight in the second half. Credit to Michigan. I mean, holding them to 246 yards of offense, but you come out of this game with 206 yards of offense yourself. After what was a pretty good first opening drive script that ends, in a field goal, mind you. We don't see a ton of Khalil Mullings, and Sherrone told the CBS broadcast that we didn't see him early because they felt that Donovan Edwards and Ben Hall were practicing better. And lo and behold, you had 13 carries for 11 yards in the first half. When you actually gave Mullings the ball in the second half, some things happened. And it's just, it's a complete lack of awareness in your personnel. It's a complete lack of awareness in the situation. Um, I come out, when you play back-to-back weeks, the number 1 team in the country, number 8 team in the country, like inherently there's some grace to me that comes out of that just because of what you were up against and what you've shown in terms of the type of team you are. But man, these last 2 weeks somehow have made it even more kind of disturbing at what the leadership looks like. And it's not on the players. I think these guys are playing their hearts off, best of their abilities. So like I said, we will talk offense. We will talk defense. We'll take your questions like we do every week. And that's how it'll go here tonight. But of course, we are brought to you tonight by our friends over at My Perfect Franchise. Our friend, Andy Luedecke, over at My Perfect Franchise has been a great sponsor, great partner to our show these last few years. Of course, you know the spiel at this point. Are you ready to leave the corporate rat race for the American dream? Are you looking for a side hustle or working your current job? Do you want to diversify, build wealth, and or leave a legacy? Andy can help. He's a franchise consultant as well as a franchise owner, helps people find franchises that fit their skill sets, financial requirements, time to commit, and more. His services are 100% free. He's not going to charge you anything just to get on the phone and chat with him. He's got a lot of expertise, a lot of experience in this field. So take advantage of that. Andy's a great guy. We've gotten on some calls with him. Always has a lot of great stuff to share. So visit him over at myperfectfranchise.net. You can give him a call at 404-973-9901. Email him at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. And thank you again to Andy Luedecke for his sponsorship of our show. All right, we'll start on offense. Kind of piggybacking off of the things that we just discussed in that opening segment. To me, I mean, Michigan as constructed never really has a path to winning football games if you don't run the ball well. 34 carries, 69 yards. Yeah, they did some things better in the second half, but weren't able to get the run game going. Clearly looks like a team that doesn't, or a staff that, again, doesn't trust Davis Warren, and maybe there's some validity to that given what we've seen throughout the years. But credit to him, no turnovers again today, but offensively, just too much left out on the field, and I thought the offensive line played one of its worst games of the year.
They got dominated in the trenches today, and that was, I think, one of the biggest keys to who won this football game. And our defensive line, I know we're talking offensive takeaways right now, but our defensive line, I thought, played outstanding and gave us a fighting chance. But by contrast, when we talk about non-complimentary football, the offensive line, I think, was one of our Achilles heels all day. Very rarely did a running back, regardless of who we played at running back, get through any hole at the line of scrimmage without contact first. Very rarely do you see guys with any sort of square shoulders moving past the line of scrimmage into the second level. Our offensive linemen aren't getting to linebackers. And the other thing that I still think is not helping us is I feel like we have very little creativity and very little misdirection in our run game. It's very telegraphed, very broadcasted. It's pretty easy defensively to identify what Michigan wants to do, where the ball's going. I mean, at this point, I would just follow number 44 every time he's in the game. And whenever Bredesen goes, he'll lead you to the ball. And I just feel like there's things now in November that Kirk Campbell and the offense could be doing to take advantage of, okay, we've been very one-dimensional. We've been very telegraphy, broadcasty. So then here comes the counterpunch. Here comes the changeup. I don't see any changeups. We only have one pitch. And it's frustrating, especially when you're in a game like this where all you need is one solid drive there at the end of the game. That's all you need. You kept yourself in it, in a hostile environment against a good team. And I don't know about you, but as I sat back watching the last drive, 2 drives, is just very hopeless. This offense just does not have that catalytic, property where they can just get going. And 10 games in, I wish there was more. And I think everybody probably feels the same way.
Yeah, I mean, not only do you wish there was more, I mean, it feels like in a lot of ways they've gone backwards, certainly when it comes to the run game and telegraphing what they do. And at times, you go back a few weeks ago to that Michigan State game, like they're pulling out trick plays. They're doing things to keep a defense on its heels at least a little bit. I mean, we know at this point we're 10 games into the season. We're 11 weeks into the season. We know what this team is. let's be honest. I mean, there's all this talk about building momentum late in the year and jobs being saved. 10 games into this, you're sitting here at 5-5. Kirk Campbell is not cut out for this, period. And if people complain that we don't call for jobs, and I'm not going to sit here and say, I hope a guy gets fired or things like that. I think it's kind of cruel, the tone that people take with that. But, your resume is what you put on film. And this was bad today. I mean, this was as bad in a lot of ways as most of these games that they've played. I mean, at least there was the threat of the forward pass, but at times, and you even go, it goes above Kirk Campbell too. I mean, you come out of the half down 14, you run on 3rd and 7, like I said in the open, only to kind of, set up a punt while hoping for a delay of game. I felt like that was cowardly on 4th and 3 at midfield in a game where you're already down 2 scores. And then you get a gift. I mean, a gift. Jim Harbaugh used to talk about gifts from the football gods. You get the gift from the football gods where Zeke Berry intercepts Curtis Rourke. I think you're right on the 7-yard line. Give the ball right back to him after kicking a field goal when you're in that situation. You're just not doing anything to challenge the defense. You're not doing anything creative. It's just kind of like this meat and potatoes. It's stubbornness is what it is. I mean, from top to bottom. And, I tried not to put too much weight on it, but that first game when Sherrone didn't go for 2 when they went up, I think it was 22-10 over Fresno State after the was either the pick 6 or a big drive that they had. Don't go for 2. And that was kind of weird. It's like, okay, in the vacuum, like that's kind of a weird coaching decision. It's kind of a lack of awareness. But it is what it is. It's one game. And then you have sequences the next week against Texas. You have fast forward to last week. You challenge a clear incomplete pass on Colston Loveland, citing that you did it just because the guys were fighting. So you needed to fight. I still don't know what happened when they challenged Alex Orji's fumble in this game. They said it was the TV broadcast kind of said maybe it was for targeting, but again, that feels like a wasted, management move there. It's just from top to bottom, when you have so many problems across the board, there's nowhere else to put that but on the head coach. And that's where I said last week or a couple of weeks ago, like, yeah, you fire the money cannons in the transfer portal. Go get Bryce Underwood. Go do this. Go do that. Flip your coaching staff. Their issues go all the way down to the root. And I'm really having a hard time seeing a path out of it, regardless of what happens when this season is over. And maybe that's too much of a long-term view to look at, but it just seems like from a management standpoint, from a doing things with conviction point of view, and then late in the game, and I'm jumping ahead here a bit, but you give up 28 seconds of a 1-score game. Because I don't know, maybe you missed all these tackles and maybe Sherrone thought they had the first down, but then someone told him they didn't have the first down and you still had to play. And it's a complete and total disaster. And yet you were right there with a chance to win. It's crazy. It's a wildly missed opportunity.
Yeah. What else is there to say on top of that? But I still am not going to start a campaign for, like you said, anybody's jobs to be taken from them or anything like that. But I think it's clear as day that offensive coordinating and quarterback's room has not met the standard at Michigan. And Kirk Campbell, unfortunately, the sword's coming your direction. And if I'm Sherrone Moore, I feel like you need to make that call sooner rather than later. And think about bringing in someone that's charismatic. Because like you said, it is a problem down to the root. So Sherrone Moore, regardless of, what he may choose to do, he's got his work cut out for him. So I think he's got to be in a position where he finds some charismatic OC, someone who's maybe right on the edge of getting that head coaching job or just needs that, transitional step, kind of like a Jesse Minter or a Mike McDonald type guy that brings, Penix with him, brings his quarterback with him, brings the receiving core with him, brings the skill guys with him. And then if Sherrone Moore can lock in on offensive line, because that's one thing that I've probably exhausted our listeners from hearing me say, that I do not understand why we don't have more talent, more depth, more consistency, better performance from a Sherrone Moore-led football team when his background is in offensive line. Don't worry about the skill positions. Don't worry about your running backs, quarterbacks, receivers, tight ends. Hire people that can take care of that position. But if I'm Sherrone Moore and I stand in his shoes, I think I will live and die by the success and performance and talent of my offensive line, and then go from there.
I mean, that's the thing too. There's a quote. I had the article pulled up, but basically I pulled this up during the game. It was from August 13th. Sherrone Moore was asked about his offensive line and said, man, you know what? That the one thing I'm confident about is that as long as I'm here, we're going to be good up front. We're going to be physical. We're going to be violent. We're going to move guys. We're going to be, have the depth that we need. And, you could make some excuses for him. The one place that there is no excuse for him, and for Grant Newsome, given that he's kind of been his right-hand man, is the offensive line. I think again, not trying to do the off-season show on November 9th, but you probably need 3 starters in the portal. You probably need big leaps from guys to even get back to something even close to what resembles even what 2021, 2022's offensive line, any of those offensive lines. Those were elite. Those are going to go down to some of the best groups in program history. And he led those groups. So we know he's capable of doing that, but it's the same deal where, I'm not going to make excuses for them at the quarterback position because Sherrone Moore was the offensive coordinator the last few years. Kirk Campbell had been with this program prior to this year. You should know what you have, and you have a hand in developing what you have. And if you haven't, if you're lacking somewhere, it's the quick fix era, right? You go get someone from somewhere. And to their credit, I think Josh Preeb has played okay for them this year. He's been kind of the type of player that he was at Northwestern, just, solid, nothing special. Thank God they brought him in because I don't know, the interior is, I think, even less deep than the tackle position is. So, again, I think that's what's most disappointing is that when you boil it all down to the meat and potatoes things of what that's the most jarring juxtaposition of all is that last year was as good as it could get, literally a perfect season. So what that standard is. And then you come into this year and it's just, when these things drop off over time, it's a little hard to diagnose in real time. But the fact that it has dropped off so suddenly, so immensely is I'll come out of the season being the most underwhelmed by that group up front because those guys are the battery and just hasn't been good enough. And when you look at this, I feel bad for Donovan Edwards, feel bad for Kalal Mullings, feel terrible for Colston Loveland. Michigan's going to really rue the day that they wasted those guys' last years in the Michigan uniform because I don't see guys that are stepping into those roles next year and doing better than they have. So it's just top to bottom. It's exhausting. And again, we're heading into a second bye week here. At this point, you've already lost. I guess I'm just going to do it. I mean, if you want to put a Band-Aid on this at all, I don't know if Kirk Campbell should be here. You've already lost your quarterback commit. My understanding is that he hasn't been very involved in the Bryce Underwood stuff. So now is the time if you want to kind of make that change and go to something else. I think you have the window to do it because you're not, to me, I don't know that you're in danger of losing anything before signing day because of it. So that's just where we're at right now.
I also, and I know we're probably wrapping up offensively, think it's necessary for me to weigh in as a former player on the orgy situation. And for the record, I am anti the orgy package. And I feel like I got into that mindset last week and even more so this week. And I know the offense has just been dead on the table pretty much all season. So we're looking for anything to jumpstart and get our offense going. But I think specifically in this game, bringing Orji out in the different times that we did, obviously he has that fumble that changes the landscape of the game pretty dramatically. But I feel like there were times where he was brought in, and especially in the red zone situation too, that there's no point in bringing him in and having that element to our offense because it's no surprise to anybody. I don't think it gives us any advantage. I think you'd have just as much success putting Mullings in as a Wildcat guy and running him with Davis Warren still on the field. So the defense can't key that in. But Not that you need to add any more gas to the Kirk Campbell fire, but today, on top of all the other things, I thought the timing and the utilization of Alex Orji was inappropriate, ineffective, and unhelpful, and eventually led to, on top of other things, one of the reasons we lost.
And again, I'm not trying to pile it. I mean, first of all, anyone who's here watching, like, you're here for the analysis regardless. There were times in this game where, I would never tweet this out, or I would never put it on our message board in our game thread. But I'm thinking to myself, like, is he like actively sabotaging at this point? Like, is this insubordination? Like, what are we doing here with the Alex Orji runs? And, again, it's, to me, when you put Kalel Mullings in the game, stuff happens. And if I bet, I'm willing to bet. I mean, what do you think the success rate is on any of these Alex Orji plays? I think you could probably count on two hands the amount of times that a snap from him out there has been a positive for this team this year. And maybe that's something I'll chart during the bye week, just seeing like what the success rate on all that is. But it's a lack of awareness in what your personnel is, what your team does well. And again, we got Brock H in the chat. It says we need to be more positive. So I'll try to be positive. Is there a silver lining from this game other than, okay, they didn't quit. They played tough. Dominic Zvada's pretty good, but I don't know if that's on the offense. It's more of a special teams tip of the hat. They targeted Colston Loveland 10 times. He only had 4 catches for 37 yards. But, if you built your entire passing offense out of him, I can't say I'd be upset with that. Good plays from Tyler Morris, Peyton O'Leary at times. Other than that, I got nothing for you. And if you're looking for positivity and sunshine instead of honesty and analysis, like I can't give that to you right now. I wish I could. We did a lot of it last year. It was fun. It's been a lot of fun these last 3 years. There's nothing to pull from this for me.
I just keep thinking that it's important to emphasize that I feel like the reason that we're not having success is because of the culture, the environment, and the decisions being made throughout the coaching staff. And do I think that we have talent gaps in certain places? Yes, but that's not the fault of the players that currently occupy those positions. They were recruited, they were heavily touted, and they came in here looking to make a splash. I just feel like consistently what we could potentially have. I don't think we have a thoroughbred that's going to win every race in our offensive rooms. I don't think that that's what we have that exists. But what I do think we have is a vehicle that could run smoothly, but we constantly are letting air out of our own tires. We're constantly putting sugar in our own gas tank. We're constantly doing things that shoot us in the foot, and we're already one-legged. So shooting you in the foot when you're one-legged is pretty damn tough. And that's why I think my frustration has kind of bubbled over the top, is that it's not a question of whether or not are we or aren't we putting them in bad. No, we're doing it. We're doing it over and over again. We're not learning from it. We're not adapting. We're choosing to do it more frequently. So yeah, I'm kind of on a soapbox screaming, hey, offensively, our offense needs an entire overhaul. I'm not saying fire Sherrone. I'm not screaming that, but Kirk Campbell, the experiment has run its course. Maybe it's some other position coaches. The experiment has run its course. There's no reason to be unnecessarily positive when it really is a real fire. It's not a drill.
All right. Normally we'd just move on, but we have 4 super chats here, and these people pay their hard-earned money, so we will read their comments. There's a couple of these. I'll read them, and we can chuckle here, but I'm not going to build a whole segment out of them. AM89 says, for $5, would you rather have Campbell calling your offense, Dr. Kevorkian giving you your flu shot, or Mel Tucker borrowing your phone? You must pick 2 of them. Well, one of those involves death, so I guess it's the other 2. Good God, man. We're going to a dark place here. Shane Johnson for $4.99 says, 5-7 football team because Sherrone has a walk-on quarterback running his program, and he made that decision in the spring. And please don't give any Tuttle injury excuses. I'm not going to use the Tuttle thing as an excuse, but it's definitely a factor. Again, when really the best of this offense has looked all year was those middle 2 quarters in that Washington game where ball was coming out quick, decisively, and then it just kind of seemed like from there We knew he was dealing with some kind of UCL or elbow injury, but it seemed like he wore down. And then that Indiana or the Illinois game was just an absolute disaster, and he retired from there. And honestly, if I had to play quarterback behind that line and I had a history of concussions, I'd probably retire too. So it's not an excuse, but yeah, I mean, we've said this before, that QB situation was a decision that was made.
The thing that I keep coming back to that you heard at the beginning of the season, and at first I was willing to hear it, and now I'm no longer willing to hear, is the post-game interview where they say, we have some wrinkles we need to iron out. No, we need to fire our tailor and throw away that shirt and start over, because we don't need to iron the wrinkles out. This is no good. And that's one of the things that I feel like just needs to be acknowledged, and something needs to be done. You can't have the same exact circumstances next year and then be surprised if you get a similar result. So I feel like Kirk Campbell, I feel like Ron Bellamy, I feel like Grant Newsome at O-line, I feel like Horford, which I still don't totally understand how we wanted the running backs coach from Ohio State. That's just me being with a biased lens, but I was never jacked about that hire in the first place. I think you need to look at these guys, and a good 50%, there's 4 of them, but 50% of them need to consider going to a different place. And it's not anything against them. It's just we've not performed up to standard, and these type of things have to happen because we're in the back. I don't know where we rank, but we're 110th, 115th, 120th in terms of so many different offensive categories. So I think that there's very good justification, reason, and evidence that we need to go make a drastic overhaul under the Sherrone Moore regime on offense if the Sherrone Moore experiment's going to continue.
Yeah, and I'll plant a further flag on that. It's the same flag I planted after or during the COVID season, after the COVID season. If you're not willing to make wholesale changes on both sides of the ball, then you might need to head out the door too. And when the time comes where Sherrone Moore meets with Ward Manuel and they plot out this path forward, if that's not one of the solutions, then a big time athletic director who sits at the head of the college football playoff needs to make a big time decision about what happens. And I'll just kind of leave it at that. 2 more super chats to clean up here. Josh Jackson for $2. He says, holy bleep, our O-line sucks. Put in Doug Skeen. Shout out Doug Skeen, another former Michigan lineman on the offensive side of the ball that does the podcast with Chris Ballas. Looking forward to hearing his analysis when they do their Monday show. Shane Johnson trying to warm me up a little bit here. He says, go Lions, go Michigan Hoops. Yes. Hey, basketball season has started. 1 p.m. tomorrow. Wake Forest should be a fun game in Greensboro. JP Montalvan for $4.99 says, whoops. Try that one more time. There it is. Warren is consistently making time for his receivers to create separation, and they don't. Where's Amorian Walker? Why are we not cycling through our other receivers to see if anyone can do it? Well, Amorian Walker was out today. So that's an option that was off the table, which is frustrating because that's a guy that you'd like to get these reps and develop him. So Peyton O'Leary is a nice player that plays hard. It's a former walk-on. He's not a guy that's, going to be, the engine of your passing offense. I think that wide receiver separation, next to the offensive line, next to quarterback play, that's probably the next most disappointing thing for me that we've seen this year.
I also think it's sad to say, but it's a new element of our offense. 8, 9, 10 games in that a play can go past the first read. Our quarterback's going to look to the second read or third read or extend a play. I mean, let's not act like Davis Warren or any of the quarterbacks we've cycled through the carousel this year have had any success extending plays or making plays with second, third options in pass plays. So I think part of it is the receivers kind of adjusting to having to run routes and be in that extended time period. That's something that, that's backyard football a lot of times, or scramble drill, run to the sideline, certain scenarios, run to the end zone, certain scenarios. And you need to have reps at those types of things to make sure that you're going to be on the same page with your quarterback. And I think we're kind of victims of our own circumstances that we're not doing better in those type of breakdown extended play scenarios. But it's a combination of not having the experience and then not having the ability. I think there's guys that there's no one that I feel like that's at our receiving position that you're going to hear go to the combine and wow anybody with some kind of crazy measurables. We just don't have that guy. There's not a guy that's bigger than everybody else, faster than everybody else, stronger than everybody else. These guys, I made a comment last week that they seem like walk-ons that got an opportunity to play. And don't get me wrong, I throw no salt or shade at walk-ons. A lot of those guys work harder than scholarship players to be where they're at. But at the end of the day, there's a reason that you weren't heavily recruited. There's a reason that you didn't stand out in high school. There's a reason you're in the walk-on role. And the fact that Michigan doesn't have an athlete or multiple athletes that can win matchups in backyard football scenarios is mind-blowing to me as much as it is to everybody else.
I think the scheme sucks too. I mean, you don't have this big throw it up to, catch a 50-50 ball type of guy, which can help. But, you have a lot of, poor Samaj Morgan. I think he's a good football player and can be a good slot receiver, but it feels like every time he gets the ball, it's a bubble screen that goes for 4 yards. It's just, there's nothing there because it's not blocked well. I don't think the plays are designed all that well. So again, it's just a top to bottom sort of a systemic breakdown. I'd be fine punting on a game ball on this side of the ball this week. I don't know if you have a thought, but I'm going to abstain from one. If you'd like to pick one, you certainly can.
Zapata, he's the one that scored, so you got to give one to him offensively.
Yeah, give the guy that had 9 points today. So Dominic Zapata, we'll give him the offensive game ball. Let's move over to, this is a good place to start, maybe. Josh Galindo says the defense played. The offense was laughable. That's kind of a good transition into this. I thought that in the first half, again, you just see this defense getting frustrated and they wear down at times. But man, they do play hard. I have schematic questions about, what Wink Martindale wants to do, but to hold an Indiana offense, which I think was top 20, top 30 in both passing and running, 246 yards of offense. And in the second half, let me go through the drive chart here. Do some quick math. They had like 30 yards of total offense in the second half. I thought Michigan did outstanding in that second half, keeping this team in the game. You saw defensive line getting home. You saw TJ Guy, I think, had 2 sacks in 3 plays. Those guys are getting the job done. And, for an Indiana offense that is kind of just throwing the ball around the yard this year. And some people have Curtis Work as, he's not going to win the Heisman Trophy, but, he's a guy that'll probably get some votes. I thought they did a really nice job, especially in the run game too. They've run the ball well, 28 carries for 40 yards. That had been an area that Michigan slipped in the last few weeks. Defensive side of the ball, it's tough to stomach, if you told me that they held Indiana to 20 points, I thought you'd have a great chance to win, and they did have a chance to win, but defense did its job today. They have their warts, they have their issues, but I have several guys you could give a game ball to for this week's game.
This was an effort that I thought warranted a win defensively, and that includes the first half where Indiana, I think, came out and as we're talking about how poorly we're coached offensively, I think it's great to acknowledge that on the other side of the football, I thought that they were very well coached and prepared for this game. They took advantage of matchups. They schematically, I thought, had a great plan to attack Wink Martindale and his different zones. And then you see Wink finally play some man. And, oh, look what happens on man on third down. We knock the ball away because we're tight to him and not guarding grass. But hey, we got there. It only took 10 games. Sorry, I can't even keep track of myself. But overall, the defense played really well. We get a turnover, like you said. That's one of the things that I feel like consistently we talk about that's not happening defensively, among a host of other things. But not being able to generate turnovers when you have an offense that's just so stagnant. If you can get a defensive takeaway or, Lord forbid, a defensive score would be amazing. But seeing those guys play tight coverage, First 2 drives, we had to figure it out. But after that, play in tight coverage, being really good with their pass rush. The defensive line, I thought, all across the board played really well and had their quarterback Rourke under pressure consistently. And I think Wink Martindale had a pretty solid game. I think this is what you should have been able to expect with what the defense should have been prior to this season starting. And I know we're down Will Johnson, and I know we have a couple secondary injuries, but at the end of the day, when you've got a D line that's unblockable and you've got solid linebackers and guys that can get the job done in the secondary, if you call a good game, you're going to have a good game defensively. And that's what I thought you saw unfold today. Credit to Indiana, those first 2 drives, especially the touchdowns. I mean, one of them was just an absolute perfect ball. We were in good phase, but good ball, good catch beats good coverage, and that's kind of the situation you ended up in. But overall, defensively, it's commendable that we made some steps forward. And I think you can look at this game and absolutely feel confident that defensively as a unit, they got better this game.
I want to shout out Anthony TH, who sent in a $4.99 super chat. Did not send a question in with it. So, Anthony, if you have one, if you're still around, send one in, and we will bump it to the front of the line. Get your questions in. We'll do that segment here in a little bit. Hey, Ryan, how about this too? Getting pressure with 4. It works. It works with the defensive line they have. Who would have thought?
Yeah. Oh, that's the question. No, I saw some of that, and I was very happy, as we've been talking about all year. That's the thing, and I'm sure there's the chance that the perspective is that as I sit here, in the rocking chair, that the hindsight's 2020, and that I think I know everything, and that's so far from the truth. The beginning of the year, I thought we had a pretty solid defense that could rely on the defensive line to get pressure with minimal extra being added in. Thought we had Khalil Mullings with consistent 4 yards a carry, and Donovan Edwards is a changeup, and probably not going to have much of a passing game. And I feel like the coaches caught on late that's what you can do, and that's what you should do. And I don't know if it's like an ego thing, like Wink Martindale comes in here with his playbook and goes, "Hey, you guys, we're running this," and then realizes, "Wait a second, no, we don't fit well. Our nickel doesn't do this well, so we're going to change." I don't know how much adjusting to the personnel that they had happened, and I feel like it's now happening, but it's so late in the game. And unfortunately, you're judged by all games that you had in 2024. And, as much as I thought today was a step forward for the defense, it's part of me that just keeps saying, well, duh, and about time.
Yep. So game balls there. I'm going to throw one the way of TJ Guy. Like I said before, 2 sacks, 2.5 tackles for loss. Jayshawn Barham, honorable mention there. I thought he played a good game for the 3rd week in a row. Any guys there that stood out to you?
I'm going Mason Graham again, and only just because I feel like the intensity with which he comes with you every game reminds me of, and this is a huge comparison, but he reminds me of an Aaron Donald, that he's playing so fast and so violently that there's no chance that you're only going to try to get him with 1. He's always going to draw 2. So anyone on either side of him is going to be either unblocked or singled, and then those guys got to win. And there's a chance that Mason Graham's going to be the second one there, even though he got doubled. So although it may not have shown up on the stat sheet today, and he does it game in, game out, which I respect a ton, but Mason Graham had himself a day today, whether or not the stats say he did.
All right, let's move into our final segment, Q&A here. And again, a lot of similar questions to what we've been taking, so not going to do a ton of them here. Kyle TT says, any update on Will Johnson? Yeah, Will Johnson was out today. I think the broadcast even said this. He's dealing with a toe injury. My understanding is that they'll evaluate him during the bye, and I do think he'll be back. There are people that have sort of like weirdly taken out their frustrations this season on him in terms of saying that he's a guy that shut it down. And I just don't think that's the case. I think he is dealing with a multi-week injury that he suffered in the Illinois game. I expect him back for, if not for Northwestern, I think he will be back for Ohio State. I could be wrong though. We'll see. Anthony TH is in with a $9.99 super chat. So basically, doubling and tripling down here with a question. He says, the days of long rebuilds are over. Indiana just showed this. Why are we committed to inexperienced coaching that has not shown accurate roster evaluation or development? Again, I think it just goes back to, moving forward, it's all going to be about what that plan is and what he sells as a vision to the athletic department. Now, again, front office wise, I think operationally they're running a pretty good thing there right now. Recruiting's been good. Seems like NIL's on the uptick. I mean, if you see some of the numbers that are rumored that they're throwing around for Bryce Underwood, like certainly NIL doesn't seem like an issue right now. Side note, he's currently on his official visit to LSU for that Alabama game. So we'll see what happens there. Still not very confident on that front, but yeah, I mean, it is the quick fix era, but am I alone? Like, yeah, go fix the roster in the transfer portal. You have 5 first-round picks on defense, or on the roster, 4 of them on defense that aren't going to be here next year. Like, I don't know. Like, even if you, on the off chance that somehow through player development and through the transfer portal that you find 1-to-1 replacements for all of them, what does the coaching staff look like? What do the other spots on the roster look like? I've said it from start to finish. Like, I feel like the sum of the parts on this team. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and argue they'd be a playoff team, but there's no reason this team shouldn't be 6-4, 7-3 right now, and maybe even better. That goes that's unfortunately, I think the quickest fix to make has nothing to do with the roster. If we're being honest.
I agree with Anthony TH that the days of long overhauls and give them 3 years, 4 years. And at least in part, I agree that I think Sherrone Moore gets the opportunity to go shopping in terms of players, shopping in terms of coaches. Now, if he doesn't throw on his purse and go out the door and go shopping, then there's another issue, But I think that his first year as a head coach caught him with his pants around his ankles a little bit because they had a misguided evaluation of the current talent that exists in their rooms. Okay, we know that, and I think I may now, if I'm Sherrone Moore, have a better understanding of where do my coaches fit in terms of, does my quarterback coach, is he high enough level and developing at a high enough level to keep me my job? And he's got to go through it position by position and make that evaluation determination for himself. And then he's got to make some decisions, and bring someone in. And that's exactly what I was referring to earlier, is I think this is the day and age where you go to the stats at ESPN one night and you look, all right, who's the best passing offense? Who's the best rushing offense? Who's getting the most yards per carry? Who's doing it with guys that maybe are, not the best athletes with the lowest level of recruits? So it's scheme that's generating these points, not the athletes generating the points. And you start putting a list together. And to me, that's how I would approach it. And I don't know that there's any merit anymore or any valor to saying, if you're Sherrone Moore, I'm not doing anything. I'm giving everybody one more chance. Second chance, I'm handing them out. I don't think college football is built like that anymore. So I hope we're not committed to inexperienced coaching and that we make quick adjustments to get our culture the way we want it. And if it's under Sherrone Moore, great. And if not, keep moving forward. But the standard and what Michigan's expected to do will never change.
Can I read you something that just came across my timeline that I want to get your reaction on? In Sherrone Moore's press conference, he was asked why they challenged Alex Orji's fumble in the second quarter. And this was his quote. Got the word buzzing down, possibly that the knee would have been down. So I wanted to challenge it. Again, fighting for my kids. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Fire your guy upstairs. Fire several people in this operation, because that's some of the wild. That's Ryan. That's awful, and it just kind of goes back to what we talked about here 20 minutes ago, whatever it was. Operation, like these guys, like there's such a lack of awareness. Like how do you get that wrong? Your guy upstairs, you have to look at it. What, fighting for my kids? What is that? You have any thoughts on that? I'm completely baffled by that. It's 2 weeks in a row. You challenge something obvious, and it's fighting for my kids.
I don't know why, but I empathize with Sherrone more. And I can understand a little bit about the position he's being put in, because I feel like I saw on the television broadcast for the first time today him with his play sheet over his mouth screaming into the microphone. And it's a tough position to be in. I've never been a head coach, and I've been a business owner for a long time, so I kind of relate those two things. But when there's fires to the left, to the right, and right in front of you, at a certain point, and someone's got a microphone in front of your face, you don't want to, call someone out, say they made a mistake, publicly, humiliate, shame them, something like that. But I feel like Sherrone Moore, his performance is now being diminished by his character, what he thinks is his character and integrity in press conferences, by not letting people know, like, no, this guy made a mistake. This was a mistake I made. This was a mistake they made. And I feel like I saw it happen with Coach Hoke. Great guy, but brought all his coaches with him from Ball State to San Diego State to Michigan. And I feel like Sherrone Moore, his performance is, as a head coach, has taken a downturn from what was already not good enough, and has taken a downturn because he doesn't want anyone to hit any of his guys with shots. And unfortunately, I think that's the wrong place to go. And, there's no excuses. I mean, there was a third down, I believe, in this game. There was a third down where we weren't aligned properly when we brought Alex Orji in for a third down run play in the first half. Had to call a timeout, burn a stupid timeout. Another coaching mistake, another issue. Last week we line a guy up over top of the punter or over top of the center on a punt. This week we let 27 seconds run off the clock on a 1st and 10 to 2nd and 2 because who knows the hell why. Those are things that directly reflect on Sherrone Moore, and I'd like to think, I have no basis for this, but I'd like to think those aren't mistakes he makes if he's focused on what he's supposed to do. But he's not focused on what he's supposed to do because he doesn't trust the guys that he has hired to do their jobs. So you're not holding anything together. We all know that the house foundation is cracked. The walls are tumbling down. Like, just let us know, and let us know how you're going to work about it. And who knows, we might get some information later, this week, but it's time to clean the house up, Sherrone. We know it's a mess.
Yeah, and I think a good leader does fall on the sword when his people or his operation falls short. I think that is a sign of leadership. But there are so many fires to put out. And again, like, Sherrone Moore, for some of the things, what he did at the end of last season, the wins that he helped guide that team to, his role and he earned the job for a reason. He is. I'll go to my grave saying that he was the right guy to succeed Jim Harbaugh, and then from there you see how it goes. And some of the things I've seen are indefensible, and all I can really say is I hope it works out for him, because I think he's a good guy who, when it's all said and done, you look at the totality of his body of work at Michigan, it should be remembered fondly. But the longer stuff like this goes on, the more of that totality gets lumped into what is going on now and could go on the next few years. So I'm worried, man. I am. And I don't want to hit the big red button, but I'm hovering over the big red button right now. I gotta be honest. It just has to be better than this. It just has to. Something that made these last few teams so good was they were clinical. It was the attention to detail. It was all of those things. And what is more emblematic of a lack of attention to detail than someone upstairs buzzing down, say, hey, you might want to challenge that. I think his knee was down. His knee was never close to being down. So that's just where I am with that. Let's go to this $4.99 super chat from Yellow Shirt Guy, who says, that was a good second half, but that clock management at the end of the game was not great. Yeah, we've sort of talked about that. And I think that, to his point, when you look at how that last 30 seconds went, where Sherrone Moore's hunched over, and I think that he knew he botched that. I didn't see that as waving the white flag, but I think it was, again, another one of those lack of attention sort of things that has hurt them all year. Daniel Schutz says, do we clean house with the entire coaching staff? I don't have a long form answer for that. I think that it is and should be on the table. We'll see what happens. Philip Johnson sent in a $4.99 super chat, but I don't see a question here for him. Maybe we can bring that up if it comes in. There is not one in yet. So Philip, if you have a question, we'll shout you out for the super chat, but we don't, we'd love to hear from you if you have one here. We'll take these last two. This one is, I'm sure, just trolling us, but I'll read it anyways. This is Anthony just wanted to ask why they don't hire Connor back. And hey, listen, man, if the guy knew how to use if the guy used a Visa gift card, he might be a heartbeat away from being this team's offensive coordinator right now. So I don't know. Let's just move on from that one. Bloomer58 says, are we completely off of Jaden Davis? I understand there are O-line issues and he's a freshman, but nothing beats experience. And if he ends up starting next year, he'll have to play at OU. He did travel this week, which is typically when you travel, it's a sign that if it gets to you, the staff trusts you to play potentially. We'll see what happens with the bye week, but I have nothing else to say about the quarterbacks at this point, Ryan. I mean, you want to run back the Jaden Davis conversation for like the sixth time this year?
I am just weighing in that I don't understand. And this game in specifically, I guess not as much so, but I don't understand if we can get him some significant game reps. To me, it makes way more sense to put Jaden Daniels in and give him a run than it does to put Alex Orji in and give him a run. If there's going to be an Orji package, then there should be a Davis package that doesn't burn his red shirt and gets him some reps against, starting Big Ten players to show that there's an investment to the future. That's another, added to the long laundry line that extends 100 yards of red flags that we've just pinned across the whole damn thing. But it's another thing that I feel like I just continue to look at is where's the future? Where are we going? Where's it going from here? Because you're losing Colston Loveland, who's the only guy that has any impact on our passing game whatsoever. You're losing your two, probably both your running backs, Khalil Mullings and Donovan Edwards. So what is the future? Where does this go? Are all of our hopes and dreams tied up in NIL money and prayers that the transfer portal is a success? Because to me, like you normally will see on another team, like, oh, an emerging freshman, or this guy's his first time starting as a sophomore. I don't hear anything like that when I look across or see anything like that when I look across our team. And to me, as much as I'm disappointed about how this season ended, just below performance of what I think they were capable of, I'm very concerned that I don't see a bright light out in front of us for the future. So that's another just big concern as we go to close this year out.
Yeah, eat at Arby's. Eventually the sun will explode. All those types of things, right? I don't know where this goes from here. I think there's, just kind of put a bow on this show. I think the range of outcome, if you told me that one of the outcomes for Saturday was that you go down, you play the number 8 team in the country, you lose by 1 score. I think that on the surface, you take that, but then you look at all the missed opportunities and all the self-inflicted wounds. And if you even just had one game where you cleaned all that up, you're bowl eligible right now. And yeah, you're probably going to the Duke's Mayo Bowl or the Music City Bowl or whatever it is. But as the schedule's on the screen, now Michigan will have its second bye week next weekend. So listen, guys, I mean, if you're still here watching these games, you got to take your wife out, take your kids out, go to the apple orchard. You have that weekend. You have that built-in time next week. Do that. Do that for yourselves. Go to the Michigan basketball game on Friday night. Heal the soul with competitive, organized, inspirational style of play. Go to the cider mill on Saturday. Watch the Lions win on Sunday. That is going to be a soul replenishing weekend for you. And then the weekend after that, Michigan plays Northwestern. I think they'll win that game, but coming off a bye, we saw how that went against Illinois. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and predict a 6 win at this point. Just we'll see what happens. And then we know how the year ends. At Ohio State, that doesn't look like it will be fun. So that's where we're at right now. Hate to end on that dour of a note, but they have given us no choice. And we've had a lot of fun shows the last 3 years. They were 40-3 for a while there. a historically fun stretch of Michigan football. And the bills due now, or the tab's being paid at the moment, but that doesn't make it any easier to stomach. Michigan goes down to Indiana, loses 20-15, 5-5 on the season, need 6 wins to be bowl eligible. I think those extra bowl practices would be beneficial to Ryan's point of, not knowing what the light looks like moving forward, but we'll see what happens. Be sure to hit that like button on your way out of here. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. A lot of great stuff, analysis, recruiting stuff on the recruiting trail, stuff with basketball. Again, they play at 1:00 tomorrow against Wake Forest. That should be a lot of fun. And we'll have a lot of stuff over the bye week coming as well. So also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention what Clayton Safety terms the best deal in America. Use that promo code UM1 for 2 months of access to the Wolverine.com for only $1. You're going to have transfer portal news coming up. You're going to have some kind of staff change news coming up. You're going to have, you have the Bryce Underwood stuff, a lot of good stuff coming from inside the fort, so to speak. So use that promo code today. And that'll close us out for Ryan Van Bergen, for our producer, Megan, behind the scenes. I'm Anthony Broome. We'll talk to you again next time. Thanks for watching.